sit up and pay attention. We've all been told this at some point in our life, right? Or we've told somebody. But let me ask you this. Did the person who told you to sit up and pay attention follow that up by teaching you actionable steps to increase this viable skill? Raise your hand if they did. I don't see any hands. I work as a college academic advisor, and I have asked my students for the last several years that same question. And they've all been told to pay attention, but not one student in the last few years, out of the hundreds that I've asked, has told me they were taught how. How is this possible? How have they made it all the way to college without a basic understanding of tangible ways to increase the skill that they need in every area of their life? Now, I have to admit, I'm part of that problem. I raised my 3 children, and I didn't teach them the skills to pay attention, but it was because I didn't know how. But that's all changed. Over the last several years, I devoted my studies to learning more about this topic. I actually even made it my focus of studies in my doctorate program, and I've actually conducted my own research. And according to research, if we can increase our attention, strengthen that muscle, we can actually lower our stress and increase our overall health. An exercise that can help us strengthen our attention is called mindfulness. Now, mindfulness has been practiced for thousands of years, and there's many ways and programs. Mindfulness, a simple definition, is being present in this moment, right now. Mindfulness is not a religion. It doesn't have to be practiced on a cushion or on top of a mountain. You could. And it's not a cure for all of our problems. And it doesn't involve stopping our brain from working or thinking or even stopping all of our thoughts. Those are all myths. Mindfulness is the most researched type of meditation or attention exercise out there. And because of the positive findings, it's growing in popularity. Many of you have probably heard of mindfulness. It can be found in many Fortune 500 companies' wellness programs, such as Google and Nike and Target, General Mills, even the US military, police and fire, pro and college athletes are even tapping in. The growing body of research has allowed scientists and doctors to gather enough information and data at this time that they're actually confident in the outcomes and the findings. Now, many of these research studies have focused on mindfulness-based stress reduction, which was started by Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn. However, over the last several years, they've expanded the research and included abbreviated and adapted programs and new programs. Programs that are web-based and that use the technology that we wear, wearable technology, and also apps that we download on our phone. And a lot of those studies are early on, but the preliminary results are positive. And what we know is if we can increase our attention, we actually can boost our immune system, we can become happier, we can reduce our ruminating thoughts, we actually can reduce our stress. And this is important because stress in society is not going down. In fact, it's going up. Across college campuses over the last several years, we've seen an increase, a 30% increase in visits to counseling centers. And the number one reason is stress. But it's not just college students. Adults, they're stressed as well. 1 in 3 have reported being chronically stressed on the job. What's your level of stress? When students come in my office, I see this. They first tell me they're stressed, and many times they're sick. Their immune systems have been compromised. I always ask them to sit over there. They tell me they have a hard time focusing. Let's see if you can relate. Do you ever study or read a page, get to the bottom of the page, and not remember what you read? Do you ever sit in a class or a meeting or a TED Talk or a conversation with friends and zone out and miss part of the conversation? How about headaches from stress or not wanting to get out of the bed? Can you relate with that? These are issues that my students come in my office with, and I take them seriously. So as an academic advisor, I wanted to do more than just tell them to sit up and pay attention. So over the last few years, I've been incorporating 60 seconds of an attention exercise, of mindfulness, at the beginning of many of my appointments. I started advising mindfully. As an educator and a researcher, I developed curriculum, and I taught a first-year seminar class, the basic steps of increasing attention. In fact, this is my class. We sat outside of my office last year under a tree and practiced attention exercises. Now, before this class, I sent out a survey and I asked my students how their level of attention was, if they could notice when their mind wandered and bring it back to the present moment right away. 32% of them said they could, but after 16 weeks of class, meeting 50 minutes once a week, 95% of them said they could. Their attention went up. Now, this was encouraging and promising, and I continued with that curriculum and developed a training program that I studied later in research. But it's important not just for their stress and their immune system, but also for their happiness. According to a study out of Harvard, Matt Killingsworth examined the connection between attention and happiness. And what he found was that people are happier when they're present and in the moment versus when they're daydreaming, mind wandering, or ruminating. This is exciting news. This means if we can strengthen our attention, we can actually increase our happiness potential. And who doesn't want to be happy? But there's more to his study. His study went on to show that on average, as human beings, we tend to daydream or ruminate or mind wander 47% of the time. Now think about this for a minute. If you're not here, then where are you? And 47% of the time, this means we're not living up to our happiness potential. I don't know about you, but I don't want half a paycheck, and I definitely don't want half of my happiness potential. So what do we do about it? When I started practicing mindfulness, the first thing I realized was my mind does ruminate and mind wander, probably more than 47% of the time. The next thing I noticed, though, of where my mind tended to go, and this was important. I noticed I tended to worry about things I couldn't control, and I tended to entertain negative self-talk. Why this is important is because of the way that our brain works, this wonderful thing called neuroplasticity. The more that we think on things, the stronger it becomes. There's even a little saying. It says neurons that fire together wire together. As neurons just continue to build new pathways, they become stronger, and as our brain continues to think on those, they just get ingrained. That's how we learn new talents and juggling and riding a bike, and it prunes away the paths we're not using. So if my mind was wandering 40, 50% of the time to a worryful thought on something I couldn't stop or control, you know what was becoming stronger? Worry. If I was daydreaming or mind wandering and thinking and listening to those voices inside of my head that says, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're an idiot. Over time, guess what was becoming stronger? So it was important that I recognize where my mind went, because over time, those thoughts can become truth in my head, and I can believe them even though they're not real. I believe them to be truth, and they can take a huge hit on our self-confidence and our self-esteem. Now, not all mind wandering is bad. I don't want to tell you that, and not all my thoughts were bad. In fact, some mind wandering is foundational for some of the best ideas and creativity out there. Maybe there's some great TED Talks. But it is important that we know where our mind wanders to. So over the years, I have read hundreds of articles and research on mindfulness, and some of the main foundational components, the commonalities that I see run through these, are committing to a time. And this is how I practice with my students. I ask them when they come in if they'll commit to 60 seconds, that we focus on the moment. And they need something to help them focus on the moment. We all do. So we focus on our breath. Or sometimes in my office, we focus on the second hand, the ticking of the clock. This is our glue. This is the glue that brings us to this moment and holds us here. The acceptance part is accepting the fact that we're not going to stay here. Our mind is going to wander. That's what it's meant to do. That's what it does. But we can train it. So we are glued to this moment following the breath for 60 seconds. And then we notice right away our mind went over there and is thinking about lunch or thinking about emails or whatever. And you just notice that it went over there and tell it to come back to the glue, to the breath. So that's our focus as we focus on the breath. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Why don't we give it a try? So sit up and pay attention. Only this time, the person that told you that is going to show you how. I'm actually going to ask that you sit in a position that allows you to be alert, but yet rested and relaxed. If you have a device on your lap, I ask maybe you put it down so you're not distracted. I'm going to ask that you close your eyes, but if you want to leave them open, you're fully welcome to. And I want you to commit to 60 seconds with me. 60 seconds, and we're going to focus on the breath. That's going to be our glue. And with all of your focus and all of your attention, I'm going to ask that you bring all of your attention to the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. You don't need to change your breath at all. Just notice it. Be aware of it. As you breathe in and as you breathe out. Maybe you're observing that this is the first time you've noticed your breath and how it changes, how it feels as it enters your body, how it changes as it leaves. All of your attention on this moment, for this moment is all we have. When your mind wanders, just bring it back to the breath. Glue yourself right to this moment and this moment. All of your focus on this moment. Now, if your eyes are closed, I'm going to ask you that you go ahead and open them. Get acclimated back to the room. For some of you, that might have been your first intentional attention exercise, so congratulations. Just kind of do a scan right now, of inside and out, maybe how you felt for 60 seconds doing that. The first step is committing to a practice, a daily practice. 60 seconds, I practice 30 minutes each day. But the biggest excuse I hear from people of why they don't do this is, I don't have time and I can't stop my mind from wandering. Well, you do have 60 seconds and you don't have to stop your mind from wandering. But I wanted to know more about technology and if that could help us, and short, abbreviated sessions could help. So this past year, with the thanks to Dr. Lavery and Dr. Bullion, we conducted our own study. I developed a 3-hour training for people in higher ed, and they had used to a mindfulness phone app. So we had 3 groups. Group 1 came to the 3-hour training, and then they used the app. Group 2 did not come to the training, but they used the app. Group 3 was a control group. They didn't do either. After 60 days, we found Group 1 and 2 had an increase in their level of attention. Now, this study is currently under review, but the preliminary results are encouraging. This means we can find ways to increase our attention with technology and brief mindfulness exercises. Because you know what? Missing out on 47% of our lives is just not acceptable. Now, I've taught you one way today, not the way, to increase your level of attention. We know with science that exercise and diet can also help. I've encouraged you to start by committing to 60 seconds every day. You can read books, you can go on retreats, you can take classes, you can even do your own research. But you don't have to do those to get started. Those will help you grow in your understanding and depth. But right now, commit. Commit to practicing every day, what we just did. And then I ask you to share it with someone else so that the next time you tell someone to sit up and pay attention, you can teach them actionable steps to increase this wonderful skill that we need in every area of our life. Let's make this world a little bit happier, just one mindfulness moment at a time. Thank you.